Took me like an hour the last time. Okay, 1 second and we will be live. Like an hour the last time. Okay, 1 second and we will be live. Okay, hopefully there's no echo anymore. Yeah. Okay, everyone, and welcome to CoachCon Series 3. We are back again. And this time we are focused on executive leadership. My name is Dr. Ty Richardson, and I am joined by our first speaker, Cynthia Whitfield-Story, who is my co-founder, and we started CoachCon, I want to say last year, about June, when we decided to make a change to the coaching industry. You're sitting inside the evolution of something that's much bigger than what we first started out as, and it continues to grow and scale. When we first started this journey, CoachCon was really simple. It was an idea built on a belief that coaching, real coaching, has the power to change lives, businesses, families, and ultimately legacy. We weren't trying to build noise. We were trying to build an impact. So we launched. We launched the first CoachCon, the business of coaching. We were trying to build a tool that coaches could use to figure out how to start, launch, and grow their coaching companies. We hosted our first conference. We tested ideas. We built programs. We worked with early stage coaches, trying to find their voice, figure out their offer, and their place in a really crowded world and market. And through that process, we learned something critical. The coaching industry doesn't have a talent problem. It has a visibility problem. There are incredible coaches, brilliant minds, and powerful stories, but most of them are invisible. And at the same time, the people who need coaching the most don't know where to find it, don't know who to trust, and don't know what real coaching actually looks like. That gap, that disconnect, is where CoachCon was really born, and that's where we really thrive. But over time, we started asking a harder question. Not just how do we build a great conference, but rather, how do we build a platform that actually changes the trajectory of the coaching industry, that gives people something they don't get and they struggle to find? Because conferences come and go, content gets forgotten, and attention is everything. That's something that I really learned a lot last year. Attention is what's up for sale, not product, not content, not strategy, attention, because that's the thing. When you lock that in and you hold it, everything else follows. So we made a decision. We made a pivot, a really bold one. We stopped thinking like every other event organizer and every other coach, and we started to think like a media company. Because the reality is this: the future of coaching will not be built on who has the best curriculum. We have AI now. It will be built on who captures the attention, tells the best real stories, and creates the most trust at scale. And that's where CoachCon comes in. So what you're experiencing today and tomorrow isn't just going to be a live session. It's not just going to be something that we take and throw out again in a few months. This is a live studio audience. This is production. This is storytelling. This is the beginning of a season. Every speaker, every session, every segment, every interaction is part of something that will live far beyond your time here today with us. It will be watched over and over. It'll be binged, it'll be shared, it'll be replayed, and it will be studied. And most importantly, it will give coaches today and in the future a platform to be seen. Our vision is simple but powerful. We are building the Amazon meets Bravo for coaches. Let me break that down. Amazon, because we will become the largest, most accessible library of coaches, the largest, most accessible library of coaching knowledge in the world, where anyone from an aspiring coach to a seasoned executive can come and find strategies, frameworks, conversations, real world application, not theory, not fluff, but real and usable insights. And bravo, not because we're just teaching, we're showing. We're bringing coaching to life through real stories, real journeys, real challenges, and real breakthroughs. Because people don't just learn from information, they learn from experiences. They learn from watching somebody struggle, somebody navigate, somebody adapt, and somebody win. Because what makes it stick? Well, that's what makes it real. And that's what makes this different. CoachCon isn't just a place where you're going to attend and watch a bunch of content. It's a place where you're going to participate, be featured, build your authority, grow your brand, and step into visibility. Because the truth is, most people won't say it out loud. You can be the best coach in the world, but if nobody knows you exist, it doesn't even matter. And we're solving that today. We're creating a pipeline of visibility and growth where someone can start as an audience member, step into our Kickstarter programs, launch and grow their coaching business, build confidence and capability, become a recognized voice, and eventually sit in the very seat our speakers are sitting in today. So this is not an event. It's an ecosystem. And today, Series 3, Executive Coaching, we're focusing on something incredibly important, that leadership talent. Because leadership at the highest level isn't about strategy. It's about decision-making under pressure, emotional intelligence, navigating complexity, leading people through uncertainty, and then the utmost reality. The higher someone goes, the fewer places they have to be real, the fewer people they can be honest with. And that loneliness is why a lot of executives look for a coach, because that's where executive coaching becomes not just valuable, but essential. Today, you're going to hear from voices who understand that world, who have lived it, who have coached it, and who are shaping it. Who have lived it, who have coached it, and who are shaping it, and the leaders that make it up. But I want to challenge you to go a step further as you go through today. Don't just sit back and consume. Engage, lean in, and ask yourself, what can I apply immediately? How can I elevate my thinking? Where am I being called to step up? And for some of you, the bigger question might be, is this my moment to step into coaching? Or is this my moment to step into visibility? Because there's one thing we believe at CoachCon, and that's this. Clarity creates confidence. Confidence creates action. And action creates transformation. And we are here to accelerate that for you. So whether you're an executive looking for your next level, a coach building your brand, or someone standing at the edge of a new chapter, you are in the right place at the right time, in the middle of something that is just getting started. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Series 3, but this is only the beginning. So with that, welcome to CoachCon Executive Coaching. Welcome to the future of coaching, and welcome to CoachCon, what will be TV. Let's get started. It is my pleasure to introduce you to my co-founder and her husband, Ms. Cynthia Whitfield-Story, as they kick us off with our first session here at CoachCon Season 3. I'll tell you a little about Cynthia and Charles. Cynthia is a results-driven executive leader with more than 25 years of corporate experience driving strategic growth, transformation, and people-first leadership. Formerly the field senior vice president at Allstate, she led a $2 billion business unit and oversaw 2,500 plus employees across complex, evolving operations. Known for navigating high-stakes challenges with clarity and accountability, Cynthia brings a bold, inclusive approach to building high-performing teams. She's deeply committed to mentorship and community impact, serving on nonprofit boards and earning multiple leadership honors, including the Athena International Award. She also serves as CFO of CoachCon, contributing strategic and financial leadership to support our growth and mission. And I would add the CFO of Pinnacle and Beyond, which is the parent company for CoachCon. Charles, her husband, is a certified executive coach with 35 years of leadership experience in executive development, human resources consulting, and board service. He partners with mid-sized to Fortune 500 companies to help leaders think strategically, execute operationally, and build strong, accountable teams. Known for his practical, been there, done that approach, Charles motivates executives to reach their highest level of professional self-actualization while helping organizations develop, retain, and grow top talent. Cynthia and Charles will talk us through the journey from leading the business to coaching leaders. Take it over. Welcome.
Thank you. So I know this is live, but I do need to say we need to let people in. So maybe you can get with Joshua and just send out the link. Great. Okay. So hello, everyone. I'm Cynthia, and Charles and I are getting ready to share our journey with you, our professional journey outside of coaching, and then how we pivoted into coaching. So my husband has been a coach for a lot longer than I have, as far as being an entrepreneur. However, I am so blessed to have him as my coach. So we started coaching years ago. And I learned a lot. I was calling him up. I said, okay, I got this promotion. I am lost. I don't know what to do. I need some help. And he jumped in and helped me. And, so we learned a lot together. So I say that to everyone that's on tonight and that will look later on. Everybody needs a coach. I don't care who you are, what you do. Everybody needs some type of coaching. So I recommend that you look at things for yourself because I think it's important. So Suzanne, can I get you to switch to the next slide? Okay, so we're going to jump into the career evolution. So I spent, as Ty said, I spent almost 40 years in a corporation called Allstate Insurance Company. Everybody knows that, the Good Hand people. And I got a chance to develop myself every way I could. So I started in the claims department, then I moved to accounting, and I moved from accounting to finance, and I moved from finance to risk management because I wanted to make sure in my life that I could be the best that I could be. And that's what I think coaching is about. So I was so thirsty for knowledge that I just kept moving around. I stay there, I learn enough, I advance. And then I say, okay, I want to be a general manager. Can I go here? And I was always fortunate enough to have people that supported me in my professional career from that perspective. So I say to you, as you look at what you're doing today, and we'll get some more into this, but look at yourself and look at your environment. And maybe you're in coaching, maybe you're in an executive company, maybe you're doing something different. But look around, don't just look at what you're doing today, but look around and see if there's opportunity that can actually build something later on in your life. So that's what I did. Mr. Story?
We get called Mr. Story very much, so let me make that perfectly clear. It's nice to hear it. I spent most of my career with an organization called Inroads. We would identify young people in college and match them with major corporations around the country. In business engineering and technology. So I was the CEO of that organization for 13 years. At the height of the organization, we had over 1,000 companies that we were working with and 7,000 interns across 50 locations in the US, Mexico, and Canada. And we had a licensee in South Africa. I've also had the opportunity and good fortune to serve on a couple of Fortune 1000 companies. I was on the board of Briggs & Stratton Corporation out of Milwaukee for 26 years, and I was on the board of a company called ChoicePoint for 11 years. And during that time with ChoicePoint, I was the lead director. I only say that because I've seen what happens behind closed doors. I know the conversations that take place. I know what's expected at an enterprise level. And I bring that experience and knowledge to my one-on-one work with my clients. One of the things I like to say to people is that, and I'm echoing what Cynthia said about coaching. I'm a golfer. I'm not a good golfer, but I'm a golfer. And one of the things I tell people is that the best golfers in the world have 4 different coaches, not one, but 4. They have a putting coach, a swing coach, a short game coach, and a mental coach to help them think about how they're going to compete on a weekly basis. And these women and men make millions of dollars every weekend. So if golfers can have 4 coaches, why can't an executive and a leader have 1? That's just to put it in perspective. So we'll talk more, but I just wanted to give you that thought.
Okay, next slide. So this is kind of interesting, key insight of coaching. And what I can tell you is I got into coaching full time. I always did it in my corporate job, but I got into coaching after failure. And what I failed at was retirement. So I was able to retire in November of 2020. And 32 days after that, I hated it. COVID, we couldn't do a whole lot of things. And Charles came home one night and I said, hey, this is not working for me and I need to do something else. And this is what, again, a coach directs you and guides you and listens to what you say. And he has credibility in his marketplace in the space he is. He's been doing this for what, 21, 22 years? 21 years. So happy anniversary. So my company had its 5th anniversary this month, so I'm happy about that. But a lot of things that you do prior to getting into coaching really builds your practice, it builds your knowledge, it actually builds your credibility. And if you're doing a lot of different things so that you can learn a lot about businesses, it's important because it will show up in your coaching if that's what you expect to do. So for me, failure was the reason why I'm here. And again, it was around retirement. But what I was able to do, and I told you I had 17 different jobs, but what I've been able to do in my coaching, so this insight for coaching, and I didn't know that this was going to be what happened. And some of it came by mistake, to be honest with you. But what I realized is that as I was doing the work, so if I was in accounting or I was in finance, or I was in risk management, sales, all of those things. Now today, my primary clients came from healthcare. So I have some physicians and chief operating officers and CFOs and things like that. But what I know is I always have what I had in my prior life. I can pull from that and earn credibility from my clients because I can talk about the business. I can talk about the experiences. I can talk about human resource issues where, maybe they are having some major problems there. Transformation, integration, mergers and acquisitions. So the good thing is you always can use what you have had or what you need to develop, but those perspectives make a difference in what you can do and what type of clients that you can actually work with. And then sometimes you just have to learn new things as a coach or go to other coaches like I have, this one here, and I have another coach too that helps me with some personal things from my perspective. So I just wanted to share that with you. Charles, you want to share your piece?
Yeah, what Cynthia indicated reflects my career also in terms of managing budgets, hiring, firing, coming up with strategic plans, the whole 9 yards. I think one of the keys that I took away from my time as being a CEO is that there are certain competencies that are extraordinarily important. And I'll get into this a bit later. But one of the things that I forced myself to develop is self-awareness. And that is how I was showing up in everything I said, everything I did, everything I wrote. Because I say this to my clients and they look at me cross-eyed sometimes when I say it, but leadership is a performance art. And people say, what do you mean it's a performance art? I say, okay, well, think about the fact that when you go to a movie or play or a performance, you watch everything that actor does. You watch everything that singer does, everything. So when you're a leader, people are looking at everything you say. They're looking at everything you do. They're looking at everything you write. An example I use, and then we'll move on, is we used to have meetings of my staff, of the leadership of my staff. We had 50 offices and we had managing directors. And so at one time we had a meeting in Denver and we were going to have a meeting of my managing directors during the day and a board meeting that evening. So we had agreed before the meeting that we all were going to wear logoed shirts, golf shirts. Well, it so happened that I had my shirt in my room, but I forgot it in my room. And when I spoke to all of my managing directors that morning, I didn't have it. I didn't have it on. So that evening, when we were having my board meeting, my assistant came up to me and said, Charles, people are wondering whether you're providing a signal. I said, what do you mean a signal? She said, you're the only one that doesn't have a golf shirt on. And I said, oh, her name was Patsy. I said, oh, Patsy, I just left it in my room. I ran up to my room, put my shirt on, and after the board meeting was over and we had dinner and a reception, I made sure I went around and shook everybody's hand and smiled so they could cut the noise, okay? So a lot of what I gathered from my leadership was built around this whole image, this whole concept of always being aware of, or being intentionally aware of how I'm showing up in everything I say, everything I do, and everything I write.
Absolutely. So we're going to get at least one person to either put it in the chat room or raise their hand. But can you share something that you did prior? And it could have been career, whatever it is you did, but that carried over to what you're doing today and gave you credibility with your new opportunity. So I'm looking at chat to see if anyone, or you can just raise your hand and we can just call on you. We got no takers. So you guys did hear that Ty said that this would be, we were going to go back and forth with this. So we want to make sure that, so we're just going to ask one person before I call on somebody. But can you tell us something you did in the past that is now prevalent in what you're doing today?
You can drop it in the chat as well.
Okay, so Inger Share, I think.
Inger Shea Colsey.
Okay, so you said you're a therapist. So what did you do before, or maybe you didn't do anything before, but did you do anything before in your life? It could have been anything that really made you want to be a therapist and make you be an excellent therapist. You can type it, you can come off and talk about it, but we would love to understand, because I don't think it matters what your prior experience was, but the fact that you learned something that you could share with others.
I actually used to work in the salon.
Okay.
And working in a salon, you work with a lot of people and people share a lot of their intimate details, and we work out a lot of different ways that people could be different in their lives. And so I decided I wanted a separate career, a different career. It made sense to go in to be a therapist. And from being a therapist, it made sense to go and start coaching.
Absolutely. So what kind of therapist are you?
What kind of therapist am I? I help people with ADHD.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. It's kind of interesting that you said that, because you used to hear a lot from, I hear a lot when I'm at the hairdresser, right? There's a lot of conversation. I'm sure the guys going to the barbershop, same thing, but you take in a lot of information, and over time you are learning how to respond. You're earning credibility, and you got different clients, so they got different challenges and good things happening and things of that nature. And I'm sure you use those conversations when you're talking to, whether it's families or the children. How do you incorporate that?
So how do I incorporate what I learned prior?
Mm-hmm. Yes, in your prior job. Yep, to what you're doing today.
So pretty much like what you were saying, being able to speak to people, from different people, bonding with them, people you didn't know, from the moment they walk through the door, and be able to have these types of conversations. People, really how you build a business in the beauty industry is not necessarily how well you do your service, it's how you connect with your people. So being able to do that, and understanding, switching that from therapy, and then understanding, like, I work with executive Black women with ADHD. And so that is like a lived experience piece that I have. And so that's what I use in my coaching now.
I love that. That's amazing. I can tell you're helping a lot of people, most definitely. And
One of the skills you have, obviously, without saying it, is that you can listen well. And when you can listen well, that builds trust. And so you're in the right place in terms of being in this session, because there's some foundational principles of therapy that you can use in coaching, and there's some that you can't use. So you're in the right place today, and we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so what inspired us? So if you'll see that it's like a fork in the road, and that's a Robert Frost poem. And I kind of always think about that, like, which road am I going to take? And I did what I'm doing now, but it really came from the fact that I wanted to do something that I knew that I was doing really well at my corporate job. And I wanted something that I had passion around. I can do the P&L and, the business and run it and the sales and so forth, but I really wanted to connect with people in a different way. Sort of like what you're doing now and what your therapist. Then I wanted to have purpose, right? So I wanted people to have purpose. I wanted to have purpose, and what did that look like? And then I also wanted it to be around people. So, those were kind of like my core things that I wanted to get to. So I wrote down, and this is, I think it was funny, but it wasn't funny at the time because I just wanted to jump in and do everything. So, we're having dinner and we're sitting down, and I said to Charles, I said, here, look at my list. And it had about 16 things on it. And this is what he said. You remember what you said? Okay, he doesn't. Okay. He looked up and said, why do you have 16 things on here? You can only do 3, so do the 3 things. And I was like, oh no, I can dabble in this, I can dabble in that, not realizing I was going to be a one-woman show for quite a while. And but I took it to heart because sometimes coaches can make you feel some kind of way. And so I got through that, and I stopped and said, okay, I'm going to figure this out. So, that's what I did. And I do things now that I want to make sure that I'm helping executives, because being one previously, it can be a lonely job, right? Because everybody's coming to you. You're supposed to have all the answers. And sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. And you have to use your team to develop that. So I love that component of it. And then I think the other thing was to help people achieve goals that maybe they didn't even know that they wanted, or to know skill sets that they hadn't been using. So for me, I try to focus on not just opportunities, but the strengths that they have, and are you using your strengths to help in your opportunity area. So we spend a lot of time on that component of the coaching.
I think what inspired my next chapter is, and people don't know this, but once I retired from Inroads after having been CEO for 13 years, I'm a planner. So about 10 years into having been a CEO, I was thinking about what my next step is going to be. And so I looked at everything. I looked at franchises. I looked at all kinds of different things. And I made some really good decisions not to do some things. So for instance, one of the things I had looked at as a friend, I was close to buying what they call a coffee beanery franchise. So it's one of the biggest decisions I made not to invest in something, because guess what? Starbucks is omnipotent, and that coffee beanery franchise probably would have gone under. I heard about executive coaching, didn't know what it was all about, and decided to get certified in it. And when I went through the certification, I loved it. It taught me principles. It taught me techniques, because what I wanted to do is impact people. I'm a big believer in Maslow's hierarchy of needs that most of us probably have heard of. At the top of that pyramid of needs is self-actualization. So I said to myself, I wanted to help people get as close to career self-actualization as possible. So when I wake up in the morning and I go to work and I'm working one-on-one with my clients, that is my objective, to help them get as close to career self-actualization as possible. And leaders, as we all know, the higher you go in an organization, the lonelier it gets. It reflects something that Ty said earlier. People don't know who to trust. They don't know who to talk to. And so as a coach, you almost become, and I use this term loosely, but you almost become like a consigliere to people. I tell people my head is so big because over these 21 years, I've had to take in all these secrets. And I'm not able to talk to her about it. I'm not able to talk to my daughter about it. I'm not able to talk to anybody about all these things that people have told me over these years. And what that does is build trust. And so that's where my inspiration comes from, is helping people get as close to career self-actualization as possible. And generally during coaching engagements, you reach these aha moments where all the things you've been talking with your client about starts to sink in, and they're ready to fly like a bird, because all the things, all the conversations you had, all the issues you've talked about, all the challenges they faced, they're ready to do it without me. So you don't want, coaching is not to force codependency. Coaching is to help people fly on their own. So that's what has inspired me to move into this next chapter, from being a CEO to being a coach. And I love it today, 21 years later, as much as I did at the very beginning.
He's a pretty good coach, guys. Okay, let's move on to next slide. You know what, before you go, I just want to talk a little bit about this. So I just want to share this because people have different processes and so forth, but I just want to share something that I use. And I know we don't have a lot of people to give examples of, but if you have some of this, I would love to hear it. But you know, what I try to do with the client, and it's really the client's, you know, ownership and responsibility, because we can't do the work for them, right? So I always tell my clients, especially when I do launch calls or connectivity calls and things of that nature, you know, I tell them, you're going to have homework. You know, is that going to work in your world and what you have to do? You know, you have a lot of kids at home, or, you know, things in the evening that stop you from doing some of the things. However, at work, you can probably implement some of these, but I always tell them, what is your purpose? Like, why are you doing coaching? Why did you come to me? And some say, you know, my boss wanted me to come, or I got a promotion, it came with my job, you know, whatever it is. But what is your purpose? Not your bosses, not your company. What is your purpose? And that is something that people really have to think about, because sometimes they don't know what they want to get out of coaching. They just know that they go, they show up, and then they really haven't thought about it. You know, I always have them as we go through the processes, you know, and Charles has me into this no more than 3 goals, right? So, and it's more manageable, especially if you're working full time. So, you know, I have them define goals, but they need to be measurable, not this, you know, squeezy, you know, you don't really understand it and, you know, it's squishy. So I really want people to have something and it has to be achievable. Align behaviors to enterprise strategy. So Charles talked about self-awareness. So there's a lot of times when people don't understand the culture that they're in. And it could be in any kind of business. It could be, you know, a one-man shop or things of that nature. But even as a client or, you know, a paying customer, when you come in there, the culture is critical. And then the other thing is, I think it's important, not just for me to help them from accountability perspective, but also for them to be accountable for themselves and anyone else that's going to help them through the process. So I do ask them to make sure they have stakeholders that can hold them accountable in their job and their careers. What are they doing from that perspective? And that process, even though that's just the you know, the easy way of showing it to you, it is really able to move people from point A to point B. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, some elements of my coaching process, and some of it is similar to Cynthia's, but there are a few things that if I have my way in terms of how an engagement runs, I love to do interview 360s, where I would come in and interview a person's boss, 3 or 4 peers, and 3 or 4 direct reports. And I'd ask them about the person's strengths, the development opportunities. But what I love most is asking these 360 interviewees, what should a person start doing, stop doing, and continue doing to be more effective? That's when you get the actionable feedback. Now, once I collect all that information, I sit down with my client, and there are themes that come out of those interviews. And so we look to identify 2 or 3 themes, and those themes are then reduced to a development plan that I have a template that I share with them, and they complete the development plan. And that serves as the foundation for our work together. Now, it's one of the aspects of the work together in that not only when we have our one-on-one coaching sessions do we talk about their progress relative to their development plan, but we also talk about what I like to call real-time issues that they're dealing with. Any situations, any issues, any challenges, or any opportunities they want to talk through. Because one of the first things I say to my clients is, what do you want to talk about today? Don't let me drive the conversation. I want you to drive what you want to talk about today. So once we get through any situations, issues, challenges, or opportunities, then we talk about what kind of progress they might have made on their development plan. Now, I said, you might have heard me say, in a perfect world, I like to do interview 360s. Oftentimes, the world is not perfect. So what happens? If I can't do interview 360s, I like an assessment tool called the Hogan assessment, Hogan assessment. They must have the best marketing department in the world because just about every major client I have uses the Hogan assessment. And there are three main components to this assessment. There's a personality component, which really reflects how your personality shows up as a leader. There's a challenge component, and the challenge component really reflects how you show up as a leader under stress or boredom. And then the third component to that Hogan assessment is your values component. What are the key values for you? Is it altruistic? Is it money? Is it making a difference? What are your core values? The core values basically really don't change. So if I can't do the interview 360, my default is using the Hogan assessment. And similar to the interview 360, if I have to do the Hogan assessment debrief, the result again is let's identify 2 or 3 themes that came out of the Hogan assessment, and let's reduce that to a development plan. Third opportunity, if I can't do interviews and I can't do the Hogan, is I refer them to the Korn Ferry competency, Korn Ferry, Ferry competencies. There are 38 leadership competencies that were identified by Korn Ferry, and they're like the gold standard of leadership competencies. And so if I can't do interview 360s, if I can't do a Hogan assessment, I'll send the Korn Ferry competencies to my client, and we go through those competencies and 3 competencies that they want me to work with them on over a period of time. So I'm just giving you that as a backdrop. It doesn't include all the assessments because there are thousands of assessments out there. I mean, literally thousands. But if I had my choice, it would be interview 360s first. If that doesn't work, Hogan assessment second, and then Korn Ferry third. That's just to give you some context as you continue to look at what you might want to do relative to your executive coaching from an assessment standpoint.
Yeah, and I use the Hogan also. I think it's a great tool, and it's universal. I mean, it's used internationally. They got so much data, it's unbelievable. But the one thing that I love about it is that the client, fills out the assessment yourself, right? You fill it all out. So as Charles told you, there's 3 components to it. However, it also, when it comes back to you, and it's not good or bad, it's just how you scored according to people that have the same score and how you behave. So the thing that we've identified, in my practice is that it comes back that you took it, but other people's thought process about you or image of you or brand of you comes back, like, are you flexible? Are you adjustable? Are you social? Do you have good interpersonal sensitivity? And that is viewed sometimes from other people's perspective. So, clients get a little confused with that. And, the one thing that I always kind of chuckle about is that we send them the results either the night before or a day or 2 before, and we say only read the executive summary components of it. So Suzanne and I work together, and she'll tell you it's not. I probably are in the high 90s of how many read the whole thing, and then some get upset because they're like, "Oh my God, I got a 60." Because they're equating the scores to the grades in school, which has nothing to do with that. But it is a really good tool, and I must say, We don't get paid for anything on Hogan. We are not trying to force people to use it. It's just something that we use. So there's no money coming in here. We don't have any stock or anything like that, but we just wanted to share with you what has helped our practices.
Yeah, before we go to the next section, which I think is something we're going to have you get to do some work on. One of the things I want to say to those who are on the line who are interested in getting into coaching or being in it for an extended period of time is you have to be 100% invested in every single interaction you have with a client. You have to get prepared. It's literally a performance in that you have to be 100% engaged, and you have to have your listening ear attuned to every single word that this person is saying to you. Because a lot of times in coaching, it's listening for the nuance. It's asking, you're asking all kinds of open-ended questions to help people get to the solutions themselves. You're not telling people what to do. You're asking open-ended questions. You're guiding them through open-ended questions to help them solve the problems or issues themselves. Oftentimes I'll just make up a name. Oftentimes I'll say to John, John, you describe this situation to me. What do you think are the top 2 or 3 alternatives to addressing that issue? What does scenario A look like? What does scenario B look like? What does scenario C look like? And 99% of the time they have the answer.
Yeah.
They just have to have somebody guide them and lead them through the process of getting to the answer. It is an absolute mistake if, as a coach, you find yourself saying, well, John, I think you need to do this. Or John, I think you need to do that. You're making people codependent. You're trying to, so in other words, you want to help them understand how to think through issues and scenarios on their own. That's what we're helping them to do. I thought it was important to make that very clear to those of you who might be interested in being a coach. So 2 things. You have to be 100% invested in every single conversation you have. If you're tired, if you're sleepy, you need to cancel the call and reschedule it because you might miss something. Okay? That's number 1. Number 2, you have to be extraordinarily keen on your listening skills because you're listening for nuances. You're listening for what the person is not saying so you can ask the appropriate question to get them to be open and transparent with you.
Any questions on that? You can put them in chat or just take yourself off, raise your hand and we'll call on you. But I thought this is critical to make sure that there's no confusion in this. It's a lot of material right now on this part because everybody has different coaching approaches and nothing's right or wrong. It's just what works best for you. Any questions on this? Okay, is it clear? Thumbs up, yes, it's clear. Thumbs down, no, it's not. Like, give us a little bit of feedback so we understand if we're hitting the right topics for you. Okay, thanks. All right, so we're going to move on to our.
Wayne said clear.
Okay, Wayne. Okay.
Thanks, Wayne.
And Wayne's a new coach. So he's learning some stuff. So most definitely. Okay, the 5 practices. So we're going to kind of tag team this because we felt that it would be a good idea to give you a little bit of an exercise before we finish this up. So we're going to ask everybody to get out. Either you can use your laptop, your computer, pen, paper, whatever. But we're going to ask you some questions and we're going to ask you to fill this out for yourself. So the first one is really talking about the differences and stuff. So it says your executive background, which they're talking about me, is your brand. So articulate what makes your coaching perspective unique. So I'm going to ask each one of you, this is what I want you to fill out. What lived experience uniquely shapes my coaching?
Lived experience and or career experience.
Correct. Yeah.
Lived experience and or career experience. And this is for you. So take a minute or 2 just to write it down for yourself because this will be a takeaway for yourself.
And the second part of that question is write a one-sentence value proposition that only you can say. So what's your value proposition for your clients or whatever you're doing, but what is your value proposition that pertains to you, not others, but pertains to you?
So in other words, why would somebody want to hire you? What do you bring to the table?
And do number two? No?
You're fine.
Okay. So that was the first one.
Give-
Okay.
I'm suggesting one more minute.
You see how he went into the husband mode, not the coach mode. So every now and then I have to tell him, I don't need a coach. I don't need a husband.
You guys might not write as fast as she does.
Okay, so the next one talks about the enterprise question, the tie coaching to business outcome. So, depending on what role you have in your organization or business, your entrepreneurial business, things of that nature, is it tied to the bigger why I'm doing this? Do you have goals? Do you have challenges? Like, what is it tied to? So this is the question that we're going to ask you for this particular one. What business outcome is this coaching tied to? So what is your business outcome? So my business outcome was always to get results and to always, have growth, year over year growth. Those were some of my initiatives so I could keep my business and my doors open. What was yours, Charles?
To help as many people get to career self-actualization as possible.
Growth was not important to him, I guess. No?
Always. So this is a statement for your particular business or what you're thinking about in terms of starting a business. What do you want your business outcomes to be?
And this one you probably don't have to write a response to, but Charles told you about, how you have your meeting. So I usually meet with my clients either twice a month or once a month, depending on what contract we agree on. But I do expect to have some type of change, usually in their behavior, depending on what it is, like at that 90-day check-in. So let's check in with your boss. Let's see if you achieved anything. What did you achieve? So the things that, we're going to ask you here just to be thinking about, what are the behavioral goals that you have today? If you have clients today, what do those goals look like, right? So I can tell you behavioral goals for some of my clients today. It's like when they're under stress, they perform a lot differently. They might, like Charles said earlier, they might be frustrated, they might be upset, they didn't achieve a goal, and people get to see that. So we're trying to make sure that people understand when you know that this is happening, like what are the things that click that or trigger that for you so that you don't necessarily respond the way that you're feeling. So we really work on how do you manage through that so that others, especially your team and your boss and things of that nature, aren't really seeing that and you're managing through it or you're having a different conversation, but you're preparing yourself for how that's going to show up for you. You're next.
Okay, under number 4, I'm going to change this up a little bit. It says focus on who the client wants to become. So this is future oriented. I have this term that I use with my clients called career nirvanas. And what that really means is before you ride off into the sunset of your career, what 3 things would you have wanted to accomplish in your career? Now, I use myself as an example. In my much younger days, I said I wanted to be either a college president, I wanted to run an organization, or run my own organization. And if I got any one of those three, I was going to be happy with my career. Now, fortunately, I got two of the three. I didn't become a college president because I didn't go back and get my PhD. I was great at school, but I hated every minute of school. But I did run an organization for 13 years, and I've had my own for 21. So I got two of the three. So from a career, I talked about career self-actualization. I'm self-actualized. I just do this now because I enjoy it. And it pays for my trips to go see my grandkids. So when you're thinking about yourself and your company, you need to kind of think about what your nirvanas would be for your company. And when you're working with your clients, you need to think about or talk with them about what their nirvanas might be. The reason this is important is because if you have direction like this, it keeps people from zigzagging. And a lot of times people zig to the left, zig to the right because they don't have any direction. But if you have these career nirvanas and you get any one of these three nirvanas, it keeps you from that zigzagging. It keeps you focused and it keeps you on a straight and narrow path instead of, like I said, zigzagging all over the place and not really making career progress. So that's what that focus on who the client wants to become reflects on number 4. And then the number 5, again, you don't have to write this down, but one of the things I say to my coachees all the time is that for a successful engagement, all we need is for you to be open, transparent, and vulnerable. Okay? Open, transparent, and vulnerable. Because if a person has a wall up, I don't care how good a coach you are, you're not going to be able to help that person. If that person's not willing and able to change, you're not going to help that person. I don't care if you're the greatest coach or the greatest therapist in the world. The person has to be open, transparent, and vulnerable. In addition to that, you as the coach have to take the responsibility to have the courage, as it says here, to challenge people. People will play games with you on these coaching sessions. You know, they'll try to hide little things from you. But it goes back to what I said earlier. You got to listen for every nuance so you can challenge people. If you give them, if at the end of a coaching session and you say, okay, what are your 30-day priorities between this coaching session and next coaching session, and they have done nothing, you got to challenge them. Because you need to let them know, it's not, you don't want them to waste their time and you don't want them to waste your time. You want them to have a serious commitment to this coaching and growth process. So if you're not courageous enough as a person to challenge people, coaching is the wrong business for you. Okay? Somebody, let me see, Ebony says, people look for yes men that never helps them get in. That's right. It never helps them get where they want to go in the long run. If they want somebody to just tell them how great they are, that's not going to help someone grow, right? I think in the AI, they call it AI sycophancy. They got these AI tools that you use that make people sound too good, okay? You gotta have the courage to challenge people, particularly if they're about to do the wrong thing that might hurt them and their career.
Yeah. And I think what I'd say to my clients, we say it a little bit differently, but trying to help people get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I can just share that with you today to be transparent. So Ty, who we're in business together, and Kathy's on there somewhere too. But he is very much, they're into social media and they know what to do. And I'm glad I'm the CFO because I don't know what you guys are talking about. So when he asked Charles and I to do this today, and I went to Charles, I said, hey, they want to put us on YouTube. They want to do this and do that. But I said, because I've been pushing back a lot, which I shouldn't have been, but it's a learning opportunity. So hopefully we've delivered something that's meaningful today, but I'm excited that we did this.
I did it
a lot.
I just had to admit to everybody, I did this kicking and screaming because this is her thing. She likes presentations and all that. I very rarely do those because I just love the one-on-one coaching. I just love the one-on-one. Ty and Cynthia and all the rest of the team at Coach Con, they can do all the presentations in the world. She literally had to almost beg me to do this because she knows I just don't do these. But I have enjoyed this, and I appreciate her being insistent that I participate.
Yeah.
So Charles, with that, do we get to have you back then? Are you going to come back and do a solo version?
I didn't say that now.
So guys, we do want to close up and just say thank you. The one thing that we believe in the coaching world is that really once you get people engaged and they're serious about it and you empower them, you can elevate them. So whatever that elevation looks like for them, that's really where we try to get them to. So if you are interested in getting connected with us, here's our QR codes at the bottom of this slide. And we just want to say thank you. And Ty, thank you for pushing the bear, because I had to poke the bear too. So, but we appreciate it. And I think I had a lot of fun. Did you have fun?
I had fun. I'm still bleeding from being poked. Okay.
Thank you, Ty.
Cynthia, Charles, you guys are amazing. Everything you've talked about is so valuable and critical for any coach who's starting and getting into growing their coaching business. You've made some really valuable points. And I don't know about you guys not being social media gurus or anything like that. You're the first person that's come on here with a QR code ready for people to scan. So you are ahead of the game now. Tell me about,
Okay.
Don't tell me you're behind now.
Okay.
Okay, so this is where we take a break. But what we're just gonna do now is Cynthia, Charles, if you would stay on, Ingershay, Oliver, anyone who wants to have a conversation just about what was talked about, maybe dig into a little more. It's a little bit of a casual free flow session. We can chat a little bit about that now. We're not going to be streaming this part